America, oh America. This great city of Washington is like Jerusalem. And the Bible says, Jerusalem, oh Jerusalem, you that stoneth and killeth the prophets of God, right from this beautiful capital and from the beautiful White House have come commands to kill the prophets. Garvey's trouble came from this house.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Tear it up.
Martin Luther King's trouble came from this house. Malcolm's trouble came from this house. W.E.B. Du Bois' trouble came from this house. And from this house, you stoned and killed the prophets of God that would have liberated black people and liberated America. But I stand here today knowing that you are angry. That my people have validated me. I don't need you to validate me.
Motion was made.
I don't need to be in any mainstream. I want to wash in the river of Jordan. And the river that you see and the sea that is before us and behind us and around us is validation. That's the mainstream. You're out of touch with reality. A few of you in a few smoke-filled rooms calling that the mainstream, while the masses of the people, white and black, red, yellow, and brown, poor and vulnerable, are suffering in this nation.
The waste that comes out of the septic tank. That's what it is. It's like the raw sewage that come out of your body. It's the odor, it's the smell, it's the raw sewage that comes out of its body. That's what it is. There's no other way to explain it. That's what it is.
And that is all over your yard?
Yes.
This is an area close to the lagoon. And the resident says when the red light goes off at the lagoon, look for her yard to flood with raw sewage the next day.
The homeowner is responsible for the systems, for the individual systems here in Lowndes County because they own the property, but they cannot afford the remedy. Unlike in places like in the urban communities, taxpayers' money actually help establish those systems. Here, they leave it up to poor people to do it, and because they cannot afford it, it doesn't get done, and then they're prosecuted for not being able to afford the remedy. And the policies are not in place to enable a solution, because instead of a massive effort being made to put in place wastewater treatment that could take in the effluent that's being released into the environment, it's being left up to poor homeowners who don't have the resources to do it.
For the last 50, 60 years, there's nothing done about sewage.
I mean, why? Why is all this injustice being let to go on and nobody's being held responsible? They just simply got this filter and taking advantage of the poor people. And then it's still not doing anything about it. It is unfair. Where is the justice?
You know, an 8-year-old, just listen to this, I'm reading from the Guardian article if you haven't seen it. An 8-year-old child was sitting on the stoop of one of the trailers. Below him, a white pipe ran from his house across the yard just a few feet away from a basketball hoop and into a copse of pine and sweet gums. The pipe was cracked in several places and stopped just inside the copse, barely 30 feet from the house. Dripping oozed into a vicious pool the color of oil. Directly above the sewage pool, a separate narrow gauge pipe ran up into the house, which turned out to be the main channel carrying drinking water for the residents.
Take you to Illinois, where students in the small town of Cairo, Illinois, are making emotional pleas directly to the Housing Secretary, Dr. Ben Carson, to try and save their homes. So let's give you the backstory. The Department of Housing and Urban Development has plans to shut down 2 complexes because of unsafe conditions there.
Decades of racial tension and white flight, the population has plummeted tenfold. Unemployment is double the national rate. 15% of the population lives in the McBride and Elmwood public housing units. And now, the Department of Housing and Urban Development wants to demolish them.
This is Cairo. This is my home. And I've made a home for my kids. And I don't plan to leave my home for no one. As you can see, I try my best to keep my apartment clean, but so many roaches and dust and dirt, but still I get on my hands and knees, make sure that my apartment is clean for my babies.
We have to wash our dishes in a tub because sometimes our sink downstairs be clogging up and stuff.
This is their room. At the moment, we don't have beds because of the infestation and the bugs.
You know what I'm going to talk to you about? I'm going to talk to you about Cairo. We call it looks like Cairo, Egypt, but it's Cairo, Illinois, Alexander County. And you and I have chatted about this over the phone and in person. This is Exhibit A in mismanagement in Washington and locally. It is a disaster. Public housing built in the 1940s. Neither of us would even consider staying overnight in this miserable, filthy, rat-infested, bug-infested, mold-infested, awful situation. None of us. And yet, our American citizens, people we represent, are living there. You made the right decision to get rid of these old housing units, but there's an obvious question in Cairo, Illinois. What's next?
We have provided vouchers for all of those individuals to be able to move out. They can move to any place they want in the country.
Many in town blame the former mayor and executive director of housing, James Wilson.
Oh yeah, are you Mr. Wilson? My name's Antonia Hilton. I'm with an HBO crew.
For years, Wilson and friends allegedly mismanaged and misspent public housing tax dollars. It wasn't until 2015 that authorities began investigating, which led to HUD stepping in.
I'm not aware of anything.
Wilson previously denied wrongdoing and declined to comment on the investigation into his actions. but the damage is already done. It'll take $7 million to bring the units back up to code.
New at 6, how far do you drive to pick up groceries for your family? 2 blocks, 2 miles?
In Cairo, Illinois, the closest store is a 13-minute drive, forcing people to leave town to get food since their grocery store closed last winter.
Empty shelves and dust-covered storefronts are all that remains at Cairo's Wonder Market. The town's sole grocery store closed in December, leaving people like Paul Jones without easy access to produce.
We cannot get what we need without going out of town.
Without a grocery store in town, people living here in Cairo can drive all the way to Kentucky, Missouri, or they can just try their hand at shopping at the area's local Dollar General, though they may find that it doesn't carry absolutely everything they want.
Well, most of the time I have to go out of state because of the fact that the things that I do need, that my wife needs, we can't get them all at the local Dollar General store.
Also, rebuilding housing isn't what HUD does anymore. Over the years, HUD has lost the federal funds to construct homes for low-income Americans.
We're not in the rebuilding of housing business anymore. Our message has been we have to deal with health and safety. HUD's motto is to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing. Each day that we don't remove families from what has happened to Elmwood and McBride, we're not holding ourselves accountable to our mission.
So there's no scenario in which everyone who's currently in McBride and Elmwood will just move down the street and stay in buildings right next door.
There's no current scenario. And I think anything outside of being realistic is just false.
1 minute I'm sitting up here going to take my rent to the bank so that I can stay in this apartment. And now you tell us we gotta move? No, that's not right.
I'm writing this letter so I can ask if you could help us.
I feel horrible about this whole thing. Another thing I am sad about, the HUD is making us move away from family, friends, everybody that we love and care about.